When we were young, my best friend had both a son and a daughter, but now in her old age, she envies my carefree and easy life. You've been childless your whole life, so you must have saved up quite a bit of money, right? Since you can't take it with you when you die, why not give $500,000 for my son's down payment and $200,000 for my daughter's dowry? After I refused, she completely revealed her ugly true colors. It's all your fault. You just stood by and watched me give birth to one after another. If you had stopped me from having children back then, I would definitely be living a better life than you now. After being diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer, she actually dragged me with her and rushed into the middle of the road. I was run over and killed by a speeding car. Opening my eyes again, we both returned to the age of 27. This time, she was determined to remain child-free. A pain that felt like shattered bones and severed tendons flooded my entire body. I drew my last breath in shock and resentment. Opening my eyes once more, I found myself sitting upright at my workstation. Staring at my reflection on the screen, I stood frozen in place. Have I actually been reborn? Tears instantly blurred my vision. In my previous life, my husband insisted on being child-free, and I respected his decision. Yet at the age of 60, I accidentally discovered that he actually had a fully grown son outside. Not only that, he had secretly been transferring my assets behind my back. He even bribed my family doctor, attempting to slowly poison me to death. Before I could figure out how to escape this scoundrel, I was dragged by the frenzied Sherry into the middle of the road and died in a car accident. Right. What about Sherry? I suddenly looked at her and noticed she was also sitting at her workstation, lost in thought. In my previous life, after getting married, my contact with Sherry had grown increasingly sparse. Since we chose to be dinks, we must make comprehensive plans for our retirement. So I spent all my time on obtaining certifications, starting businesses, investing and managing finances, broadening my horizons, and improving my own skills. While I was studying and taking exams day and night, Sherry posted daily updates about her daughter's growth on her social media feed. While I was enduring hardships to secure investments and take the company public, Sherry posted daily updates about her son's growth on her social media feed. And so, 20 years later, she had both a son and a daughter, and I had also amassed a considerable fortune. Just as I was planning to travel the world with my husband, I discovered the betrayal of the person lying beside me. Feeling as if I had fallen into hell, I arranged to meet my best friend from my youth, Sherry. I had intended to pour out my heart to her, but before I could even open my mouth, I was met with Sherry's endless stream of complaints, flowing like a river, complaining that having children ruined her figure, and that taking care of them day and night left her physically and mentally exhausted, complaining about the difficulty of getting along with her mother-in-law, and how, after finally enduring until her children grew up, they turned out to be disappointments. Her daughter clamored to marry a foreigner far away, while her son resented her for not being able to provide a dowry or a down payment. She scrimped and saved her whole life, only to end up with nothing but a body full of pain. As she spoke, she suddenly turned her gaze toward me. You've been child-free your whole life, so you must have saved up quite a bit of money, right? I smiled wryly and tried to comfort her. Children will gradually come to understand things. What matters most is that those bound by blood won't harbor thoughts of hurting themselves. But she simply wouldn't listen, her eyes gleaming with greed. You've earned so much, and you can't take it with you when you die. Why not give $500,000 for my son's down payment and $200,000 for my daughter's dowry? I'll have them recognize you as their godmother, inherit your property, and take care of you in your old age. How does that sound? It wasn't that I didn't want to lend it to her, but my company had long been taken over by my husband. I'm afraid I couldn't even come up with 100,000 yuan. Just a few days after I politely declined her, she was diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer. She blamed everything she had suffered on me, dragging me into a car crash that ended both our lives. Sherry, who had been lost in thought, noticed my gaze. She abruptly stood up and strode over to my workstation. Crossing her arms, Rose, this time I absolutely refuse to have a child. Just you wait. I'm going to be a carefree career woman too. Has she also been reborn? Seeing that I remained silent, Sherry gave me a push, displeased, and said, "Don't think you can be smug just because you had a better life than me in your previous life. I was held back by those two burdens in my last life. In this life, I'm going to be a DINK, just get married. No kids. I'll focus on making money and outdo you." I smiled bitterly. It seemed she hadn't been beaten down much by society in her past life. That's why she now thinks money is easy to make and being a strong, independent woman is a breeze. Seeing her arrogant demeanor, I couldn't be bothered to bring her down a peg. I just smiled and reminded her, "Are you sure John Williams can accept your DINK lifestyle?" Sherry's expression instantly froze. John Williams is a traditional, family-oriented man. In her previous life, just after giving birth to her daughter, Sherry had inadvertently revealed to me that her husband still wanted a son. I cleared my throat softly and spoke slowly. "It seems whether you can be child-free isn't solely up to you." Leo was more forward-thinking. Before we got married, he suggested to me that we could marry but not have children. Sherry nodded slightly, lowering her gaze as if lost in thought. Coincidentally, Leo, who was still in the ambiguous phase with me, called at that moment. On the other end of the line, Leo was attentive and spoke in a gentle tone. He asked if I had time this week. He had bought movie tickets and wanted to invite me to watch a film together over the weekend. Hearing that familiar voice again, I felt nothing but utter disgust. Leo was a blind date introduced by my second aunt. In my previous life, he had always treated me with a gentle and considerate demeanor. But based on the timeline, he had a child with that other woman just a few years into our marriage. Just thinking about how my partner not only deceived me for decades with careful planning, but also tried to poison me, I felt a chill run through my entire body. Leo, on the other end of the phone, grew anxious when he didn't hear my response. "Rose, are you listening?" I pulled my thoughts back and forced myself to speak calmly. "Sorry, I have some personal matters to take care of this weekend. You should ask someone else." After hanging up the phone, I happened to meet Sherry's sharp, calculating gaze. Realizing what she was scheming, I couldn't help but feel a pang of pity and reminded her, some people and some things are not as glamorous as they appear on the surface. The meaning of a second chance is to avoid repeating past mistakes, not to romanticize the path not taken. Sherry sneered coldly. "Don't think that just because you had a lot of money in your past life, you have the right to lecture me. As long as I don't have children in this lifetime, I will definitely live better than you." I couldn't be bothered to waste time arguing with her, so I got up and went to the restroom. When I returned, I saw that the call log on my office phone had been opened. I guessed she had already gotten Leo's phone number. Silently turning off my phone, I realized that good advice is wasted on those determined to ruin themselves. All I could do was respect their choice and wish them well. Sherry and I were university alumni, and after graduation, we both joined the bank together. Although there were a few more performance evaluations than usual, the job was still stable and secure. As I was leaving in the afternoon, my supervisor suddenly stopped me. "Usually, I'm quite close to Sherry. Do you know what's been going on with her lately? Sherry has been absent-minded at work for the past few days. Not only has she been continuously complained about by customers, but her service attitude has also taken a sharp turn for the worse. She's clearly a maid by fate. Yet she insists on having the princess syndrome. If this continues, sooner or later, I'll be dragged down by her and end up taking the blame for her." I looked at my supervisor with a face full of sympathy, shaking my head to indicate I didn't know. The supervisor, having failed to gather any useful information, stormed off angrily. In truth, I had a pretty good idea of the answer. In my previous life, Sherry married John Williams, a man with strong traditional views, and never had to worry about food or clothing. Every day, aside from going to work, it was all about shopping. So naturally, she had the patience to stay at her workstation and guard her own little territory. Later, when John Williams was laid off by the company due to his age, she began to blame the heavens and others, her resentment growing heavier and heavier. But she didn't suffer for long before dragging me into a car crash with her. "Sherry, who had always lived a pampered life, considered herself exceptional in this lifetime and was determined to follow the path of a strong, independent woman. How can one still settle down and work a full day? Sure enough, within a few days, Sherry became the talk of the bank. It was said that during work, she would resort to physical violence against customers at the slightest disagreement. When the bank manager tried to intervene and said a few words to her, she even cursed his entire family. The bank manager was immediately rushed to the hospital with an emergency oxygen mask. The supervisor was penalized with a 6-month performance deduction, while Sherry got her wish and was handed a termination package. On Monday morning, the supervisor, sporting 2 dark circles under his eyes, tossed a file at me. These clients all have the potential to become our bank's high-quality customers and are interested in purchasing financial products. Go through the materials and verify each one. I remember, in my past life, this task usually fell on Sherry, because she was best at flattering the supervisor. Such good opportunities were always given to her first. As I flipped through the materials the supervisor handed me, one client caught my attention. David Williams. The reason this person left such a deep impression on me is that in my previous life, he almost became one of my biggest clients. In the dead of winter, he was dressed in thin clothes. His shoes had a hole in them, and he carried an old woven plastic bag in his hand. After his number was called, no one was willing to attend to him. Feeling sorry for the old man, I dug into my own pocket and bought him a stuffed egg pancake from the snack stall across the street. Who would have thought that the elderly gentleman had actually come to purchase a financial product? 5 million. He took my hand and said I was warm-hearted, insisting that I handle his business for him. Naturally, I was overjoyed, and then Sherry suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Kevin handed me a cup of water. The weather is so cold. Let the elderly have some hot water. Without thinking much, I passed the hot water to David Williams. Who would have thought that after drinking it, he would have difficulty breathing, break out in red rashes, and be rushed to the hospital? I was criticized by my supervisor for this incident and was made an example of what not to do. For the next 6 months, I was frequently ostracized and isolated by my colleagues, and I resigned in a state of depression. Afterward, I couldn't help but wonder if Sherry had done it on purpose. But when she tearfully pleaded, saying she didn't know the elderly woman was allergic to rose tea, my heart softened. Now, looking at the bold, black letters on the client file that read allergic to roses, I finally realized that Sherry had been jealous of me from such an early stage. In this lifetime, the reason Sherry has turned the tables and taken charge of the workplace is probably because she believes that as long as she doesn't have children, she will become a highly sought-after career woman. So he disdains to stay in the bank and play tricks with ordinary people like us. I'm quite curious, without Sherry secretly tripping me up behind my back, can I achieve even greater success with the platform I have now? I shared the client information with several colleagues who had secretly helped me when I was isolated in my previous life. We all agreed to take separate actions. At the end of the year, we all achieved good results and received bonuses. After the New Year's opening task was assigned, we were even more motivated. Everyone, pause your work for a moment. The supervisor called everyone over, his tone full of excitement. Just received notice that due to our branch's excellent performance in the wealth management sales department during the 4th quarter of last year, the head office leadership has decided to visit our branch for an inspection and encouragement in the near future. Everyone must be on high alert. Let the leaders see the full enthusiasm and employee spirit of our bank. I knew my opportunity was about to arrive. In the blink of an eye, the day of the leaders' inspection arrived. The moment they stepped into the bank, I happened to be walking past them with a stack of documents in my left hand and a phone in my right. "Hello, Uncle Wong. From the sound of your voice, you seem to be in excellent health lately." Yes, it's me, Rose. Yesterday, I went to your house to visit, but you weren't there. So I took the liberty of giving the gift to Auntie in your name. Aw, Auntie loved it? Oh, it's nothing. It's the least we could do. By the way, there are 2 more things I need to remind you about. One is that your fixed deposit is due the day after tomorrow, and you can roll it over. Also, Since the current fixed deposit interest rates are relatively low and there may be further rate cuts in the near future, we currently have a product with a 3.5% rate available for sale. Could you spare some time to come over and take a look? I'll explain it to you in detail. Okay? Uncle Wang, I'm truly honored by your trust in me, but 10 million is not a small amount. You must consider it carefully. Moreover, you are a 5-star client of our bank, earning tens of thousands of points every month. You can take advantage of the abundance of New Year gifts to choose your favorite home appliances or some green organic fruits and vegetables. When you come, I'll personally attend to you. How does that sound? Sure enough, several inspecting leaders stayed behind me, observing my every word and action. After I finished the call, one of them stepped forward. His dignified face held a hint of appreciative approval. Little girl, I just heard you on the phone. Since the client has expressed trust, why not directly invest the 10 million fixed deposit into wealth management products? Wouldn't that make it easier for you to earn a handsome commission? Pretending not to know who he was, I replied with a serious expression. A client's trust should be a responsibility to me, not a resource to be squandered at will. A single transaction is just the beginning. Only by genuinely standing on the client's side and safeguarding their interests can we build lasting relationships. Managing finances is a small matter. Being a person of integrity is what truly matters. Our supervisor and the branch manager were pacing by the window, muttering about why the leaders still hadn't arrived. My firm and resolute words instantly caught their attention. The two of them pushed through the crowd, and upon seeing the person sitting across from me, their faces turned pale with shock. Hastily putting on an apologetic smile, I apologized to the leader. I'm sorry, Secretary Sam. The little girl doesn't know any better and was just talking nonsense. Please don't take it to heart. The elderly man referred to as Secretary Sam not only didn't get angry but instead pointed at me with a kindly expression. President James. This young colleague is quite good, sincere and responsible with clients. Meticulous and thorough in her work. When we retire someday, we'll come to this girl for financial planning and deposit our pensions with her. I have complete confidence in her. With Secretary Sam's approval, the other leaders also cast approving glances my way. Afterwards, they even asked me directly to explain several of the bank's recently popular products to them. I had long since memorized the strengths, weaknesses, and target demographics of each product inside and out. Seeing the leaders nod repeatedly, their smiles growing wider, I knew my performance had left them very satisfied. As the inspecting leaders were leaving, they turned back to ask the bank manager, by the way, what's the name of this young colleague? Though she's young, she speaks and handles matters with great tact. The head office is planning to launch a pilot project in financial product sales and intends to select outstanding talents from various branches to assist. I think your branch should choose her. The bank manager and supervisor nodded repeatedly. Yes, Secretary James, rest assured. We will fully support Rose in the upcoming selection and transfer work. Please rest assured, Secretary James. After the bank president and the supervisor, Secretary James, and their entourage had left, the colleagues immediately swarmed around. Amazing, Rose. You're practically our idol. Yeah. You actually managed to rattle off all the details about our products effortlessly in front of such high-ranking leaders. I really envy your memory. The key is you weren't the least bit nervous. If it were me, I'd be dying of anxiety. Seeing the kind and supportive responses from those around me, I felt a warm current surge through my heart. It's wonderful. In this lifetime, I will never again be looked down upon or isolated by my colleagues. Without Sherry's schemes and traps, I proved my own abilities. Who says an independent woman can't have children? You don't have to start a business with nothing. I think I can make time to have a baby of my own. Next, I threw myself into a busy work schedule. Although I had previously gained a very detailed understanding of some basic financial products while working at the branch, the pilot project established by the head office this time involved a wide variety of products, many of which were high-risk, high-return products I had never encountered before. To make up for my shortcomings, after returning home from work, I had to look up and organize the materials all over again. At the same time, I was preparing for some professional certificates in financial management. Just in case. Heaven helps those who help themselves. Since this platform could help me reach new heights in this lifetime, I couldn't let this opportunity go to waste. That evening, just as I turned on my computer to start working overtime, the doorbell suddenly started ringing incessantly. To avoid being disturbed while studying or working, I specifically rented a house to live alone. Who could possibly come to see me at this late hour? I opened the door in confusion, only to be caught off guard by my second aunt scolding, her spit spraying all over my face. Even before stepping inside, she was already spewing a torrent of foul language. I say, Rose, have you stuffed your head into a donkey's belly? I went through so much trouble running around and pulling strings to find you a blind date, and you keep making excuses to avoid meeting them. What's going on? I wiped my face and said helplessly, Auntie, you came to my place in the middle of the night just to talk about this? Seeing my indifferent attitude, my aunt was so angry that smoke seemed to be coming out of her nostrils. Isn't this matter important? While you're still young and have options, when you get older, others will be the ones picking you. Leo works for the railway. He's a government employee. Stable. There are plenty of girls lining up to go on blind dates with him. I'm doing this for your own good. Don't be ungrateful. I crossed my arms, my tone teasing. Oh, if Leo is so great, why don't you introduce your own daughter to him? Second aunt's face turned pale with anger. What nonsense are you talking about? Your cousin is only 16. I shrugged. So what? She's not studying anymore anyway. She can get engaged back in her hometown first, then get the marriage certificate in a few years when she reaches the legal age. Who cares about that? If you push a bit harder, she can have a child earlier and recover faster. Most importantly, don't let the fertile water flow into someone else's field. You, ungrateful daughter. Second aunt left in a furious rage. I sneered inwardly. It was only after I married Leo in my previous life that I understood why second aunt was so insistent on setting us up. Second aunt has a son and a daughter. Her daughter dropped out of school early, and her son was no good, only able to attend a technical secondary school. By chance, she met Leo's parents at a matchmaking corner. After showing them my information, seeing that Leo's parents were very satisfied with me, they introduced me to him even though they knew he already had a girlfriend, all for the sake of ensuring that after her cousin graduated, Leo could be arranged by his parents to get a job on the railway. As for me, naturally, I became a favor in my second aunt's hands, the legitimate wife Leo would marry to appease his parents. If I hadn't been framed by Sherry at work in my previous life and lost my job, I wouldn't have been so foolish as to rush into marriage so quickly. I wonder if Sherry really intended to win over that mama's boy, Leo, after getting his contact information in the office that day. Oh, who is this? Oh my God, Rose? How did you end up like this? In the fast food restaurant, after another all-nighter of studying, I lifted my swollen eyes, my hair a tangled mess, only to see Sherry walking toward me. She covered her mouth with her glittering, diamond-studded nails, her tone exaggerated, and the man beside her was none other than Leo, the man who tricked me into marriage, had a child outside our marriage, and poisoned me in my past life. Sherry clung tightly to Leo's arm as if declaring her sovereignty, her face full of arrogance, as if afraid I wouldn't know they were dating. It seemed that after resigning, Sherry had spared no expense in investing in her appearance. Dressed in designer labels, with permed hair, a nose job, and even her slightly sunken temples filled in. Now she is neat, tidy, and radiant, the very picture of a refined woman. Regardless of her job or family background, just her appearance alone is enough to win the favor of Leo's parents. The way she looks at me now is clearly that of a victor gazing down upon a defeated opponent. It's not entirely her fault. After all, my current disheveled appearance has indeed given her the utmost confidence and sense of superiority. Sherry rested her head on Leo's shoulder, her tone filled with pride. Let me introduce you. This is my boyfriend, Leo. My former colleague, Rose. Leo affectionately tapped Sherry's nose. I really stayed up all night. So sleepy I wanted to yawn, gritting my teeth and letting out a long sigh through my nose. Unfortunately, this look in Sherry's eyes came across as seething with anger. Teeth clenched in fury. Sherry got excited, using the excuse that she wanted to drink milk tea to send Leo out to buy some. After Leo left, she walked over to me in her 10-centimeter high heels, looking down from above and said, "Leo is planning to propose to me." She extended her hand, revealing a diamond ring on her ring finger that was noticeably larger than before. Her eyes sparkled with an air of unshakable self-admiration. "He said he'll only love me for the rest of his life, and he can't bear to see me suffer the pains of childbirth for him. We're going to live in our own little world forever. After we get married, I can do whatever I want. He'll always spoil me and support me." I took a sip of water and replied perfunctorily, "Congratulations on making your dream come true." Seeing that I showed no emotional reaction to my husband being taken away, Sherry was clearly getting flustered. She widened her eyes and exclaimed loudly, "Rose, do you know what I hate most about you? Whether in this life or the last, you've always been like this, so calm and detached, as if nothing in the world could ever touch you. You mess up at work, get isolated by your boss and colleagues, and you don't care. You endure all the hardships of starting a business. Yet somehow you still manage to thrive. Even in marriage, you end up with a man who dotes on you and spares you the pain of childbirth. How is that fair?" By the end, Sherry's voice was hoarse. "Rose, when it comes down to it, you owe me. If it weren't for you in our past life, only caring about your own enjoyment of being dinks and not stopping me, just watching me give birth to one after another, I wouldn't have been dragged down by them, worn into a haggard woman, and left with a body full of pain. Just you wait. Everything you had in your past life, I can have in this one too." I slumped in the chair, my face a complete picture of confusion. All the choices she made in her past life were her own lifestyle decisions. What does that have to do with me? Blaming all the hardships of life on me, what kind of bullshit logic is that? Whatever. No point arguing with an idiot. I curled my lip. Well, good luck with that. After venting her emotions, she still managed to throw in a warning. "Don't even think about competing with me for Leo in this lifetime. He said he would only marry me." I was too tired to speak and simply gave an okay gesture. "Please lock it in tight." "Thank you." After the temporary assignment ended, I was called into the branch manager's office. "Rose, the younger generation is truly formidable. Secretary Sam said that the successful launch of this pilot project and its large-scale implementation across grassroots branches owe much to your efforts. He personally named you and decided to formally transfer you to the head office as a technical advisor. You really are a lucky one." For a moment, I felt as if I had been transported to another lifetime. How could this not be considered luck? Not only was I reborn, but the person who killed me in my past life also took away my ill-fated romance. In my career, I'm walking on solid ground, soaring straight to the top. I wouldn't even dare to dream this big in my wildest dreams. Thank you, President James, for your careful cultivation. No matter where I go, I will always remember your recognition and kindness. Please rest assured, President James, I will continue to work hard." While handing over my work, a few close colleagues looked at me with complicated expressions and asked in low voices, "Rose, you came at just the right time. Did Sherry invite you to her wedding next week? So soon? She hasn't sent me an invitation yet. Probably an oversight. Or maybe she's afraid I'll compete with her for that scumbag." I silently added in my mind, "Look, this is the post she just shared on her social media." In the photo, Sherry leans into Leo's embrace, holding their marriage certificate, her smile sweet. Only I know that this deception has just begun, and even more absurd scenes await her discovery. "Rose, are you going to attend Sherry's wedding?" "Yes, of course I'm going, and I'll give a big red envelope. Consider it an early donation for the hardships she's about to face." In the end, Sherry couldn't resist the urge to show off. She sent me the invitation the night before the wedding. Returning to the old place, it finally dawned on me, saying they didn't want to make a big fuss, so they chose to have a traditional Chinese wedding in their hometown. It's just that they were afraid a grand wedding would break the heart of their white moonlight. Now, the one kept in the dark has become Sherry. Ah, what are you doing? A sharp, piercing scream from Sherry suddenly erupted from the crowd. I followed the sound and saw Sherry being pushed, shoved, and pulled up by a group of village women. She was clutching her chest tightly, her emotions in complete collapse. But there was no sign of the groom. Sherry, now this is just you being unreasonable. Our custom here is that when a bride enters the house, she must take off her shoes, socks, and outer clothes, sit barefoot in a basket for 4 full hours. It's called tempering the temper. This is all for your own good, so that you and your husband can have a long and loving marriage. A few colleagues who couldn't stand it whispered among themselves. Is this really about tempering the temper, or just putting on airs? The groom's family is going too far. To be honest, I'm a bit surprised too. I remember in my previous life, there didn't seem to be this kind of procedure, did there? But that wasn't all. Out of nowhere, 4 burly men with red silk sashes tied around their waists appeared, 2 of them holding Swana horns, surrounding Sherry, who was sitting in a bamboo basket, and began blaring out piercing music. The other 2 grabbed a long, greasy strip of pork belly and forcibly shoved one end into Sherry's hand. While cutting the meat with a knife, they shouted, "Parting from the mother, sharing the meat." Leo stood outside the crowd, watching with a smile as those around him praised his good fortune for marrying such a beautiful wife. Seeing her own husband actually joining outsiders and laughing at her, Sherry didn't know where she found the strength, but she pulled out the pork and flung it right into Leo's face. "Are you fucking blind? Can't you see I'm being messed with by these idiots?" Leo's face darkened, but with so many people around, he lowered his voice and said sternly, "This is tradition. The aunties are just looking out for us. How can you be so unreasonable?" In her previous life, Sherry had always been pampered by her husband. When had she ever endured such humiliation? With her hands on her hips, she cursed loudly. "Pa, what kind of bullshit tradition is this? Don't think I can't see through it. These old hags are clearly trying to put me in my place. I'm telling you, if they don't kneel down and kowtow to apologize today." Ah. Sherry hadn't finished speaking when Leo kicked her in the leg. The kick sent her head smacking against the edge of the table, leaving a large, dark bruise. "Let me tell you, Sherry, don't push your luck. You were the one who insisted on marrying me. If it weren't for my parents being satisfied with you, I wouldn't even bother with you. If you keep spouting such filth, believe me, I'll throw you out right now." Struck where it hurt most, Sherry's eyes instantly reddened. He dove into the car and refused to come out. The aunties and burly men looked at each other, all frozen in place, whispering among themselves. In the end, Leo lowered his head, got into the car, and invited the reluctant bride to step out. During the ceremony, the 2 of them wore dark expressions the entire time. Seeing the situation, the host skipped every possible step to save time, afraid that the 2 might start arguing and harm innocent bystanders. Finally, it was time to eat. Rubbing my rumbling stomach, I had just picked up a bite of food with my chopsticks when I saw Sherry lifting the hem of her dress and walking over to my table. She held her head high with pride, like a victorious rooster. I quickly raised my glass, using water in place of wine, and offered a heartfelt toast. "Congratulations. May your love last forever, and may you remain child-free for life." I downed the juice in my hand, my face beaming with a sincere and genuine smile. Seeing me so forthright, Sherry's expression turned somewhat unnatural. It was Leo beside her who forced out a few dry chuckles with a grin. After all, this man only said he wanted to be child-free with his original wife, but that didn't mean he would be child-free with women outside. However, given Sherry's suspicious and paranoid nature, I suspect it won't be long before she discovers she's been deceived. After being transferred to the headquarters, I was swamped with work from the get-go. I had no mind to care about Sherry's married life or my second aunt's persistent efforts to set me up on various blind dates. Perhaps it wasn't until this lifetime that I finally found the courage to admit it. My parents never truly loved me. In my previous life, the reason I so easily entered into marriage with Leo, who advocated for being child-free, was also due to the influence of my family of origin. My parents favored sons over daughters, and their marriage was unhappy, leading me to reverse priorities in parent-child relationships from a young age. Like an adult, I tried to please my parents by meeting their emotional needs. However, I discovered that as I became more and more successful, I was coveted by an increasing number of relatives. Like a piece of fatty meat, I have never been loved. So of course I have no confidence in being a good mother. That's precisely why Leo in my previous life was so sure I had no way out, betraying and scheming against me without restraint. I worked desperately to earn money and build a career, only to find in the end that the emptiness inside me grew larger and larger. It was also at that time that I suddenly thought, if I could have a child like Sherry, a blood relative connected to me, would my days then not feel as hollow and tasteless as a walking corpse? The term DINK was once a self I dared not face, and an unhealed scar from my childhood. At this moment, I even feel somewhat grateful to Sherry. It was she who helped me kill the outwardly strong but inwardly weak self of my past life. It gave me the courage to clear the clouds and see the sun from the ruins. I took a deep breath, feeling as if I had never been so relaxed at any moment like now. As long as there is a direction in my heart that I want to go, everything becomes clear. How fortunate I am to be reborn at the best age, with plenty of time and energy to be myself. 3 years later, due to my outstanding work performance, I was transferred to the capital to oversee an international investment project. The overseas consultant I was paired with for the project turned out to be Sherry's husband from her previous life. I couldn't help but sigh inwardly. What a small world! During a project dinner gathering, he actually approached me on his own initiative. After a conversation, I found out that he was actually David Williams's son. So, in my previous life, the reason Sherry deliberately handed me that cup of rose tea wasn't simply to compete with me for clients. Her greater scheme was to marry John Williams. And John Williams, taking advantage of being a bit drunk, actually confessed his feelings to me. Under the dim yellow light, he spoke with deep affection about the matters weighing on his heart. Rose, 5 years ago, I fell in love with you the first time I went to the branch to handle business. I deliberately begged my father to liquidate some of his assets and have you manage them, just so I could find more opportunities to get close to you. I never expected you to be so outstanding. In just a year, you were transferred to the head office. My mouth was still agape in shock when he suddenly produced a rose out of nowhere. With deep affection in his eyes, he said, "To be able to stand by your side, I had my father transfer all our family businesses to the capital. Rose, I've worked so hard for so long, and now I finally have the qualifications to stand before you and confess. Will you be with me? I promise to treat you well for the rest of my life, and with your abilities. Once we get married, I'm sure you'll have no problem managing all the family assets." Looking at this self-absorbed man in front of me, I lost interest instantly. He doesn't actually think this behavior is cool and romantic, does he? I've worked so hard all these years, not so you could use marriage as an excuse to get me to work for your family for free and take advantage of me. Mr. Wang, thank you for your affection. I'm sorry, but I have no plans to get married in the next few years. You're drunk. I'll pretend what happened today never happened. I thought my rejection would make him maintain some basic decency, but I never expected the term overconfident man to be so fitting. The next morning, John Williams actually showed up holding a huge bouquet of roses. He arranged a confession ceremony right in front of all my colleagues in the team. Rose, I know I was too abrupt yesterday, expressing my feelings to you so suddenly without proper preparation. Today, I've made a formal proposal to start a relationship with you in front of everyone. Will you accept? Some colleagues who were unaware of the truth started to cheer and stir things up. Say yes! Say yes! Rose, I know what you're worried about, but it's okay. After we get married, you won't have to work so hard anymore. You just need to focus on being beautiful, taking care of the family, and raising the children. I'll support you. Listen, what an enticing confession. I finally understand why John Williams failed in his midlife entrepreneurial venture in his previous life. Some people always mistake their lofty ambitions for unrecognized talent. He doesn't really like me at all. He's just relying on his privileged background to satisfy his own desire for conquest. I let out a cold laugh. What makes you think I would ruin my promising career for you? Besides, I have no interest in being a housewife. Even if I have children in the future, there's only one possibility: keeping the child and leaving the father. Men like John Williams are truly strange. He clearly didn't like the ordinary, plain Sherry from his previous life, who stayed at home to take care of her husband and children. Yet he wanted to turn the independent and shining me of this life into the Sherry from his previous life, trapping me at home to have children. Fortunately, this farce ended during the business trip. After returning from the business trip, David Williams suddenly proposed to change his financial manager, transferring all 50 million yuan of his wealth management under his name to a newly arrived colleague to handle. Looking at the old man with evasive eyes and the new colleague with a radiant smile, I smiled and completed all the transfer procedures for him. However, the more he acted this way, the more convinced I became of how wise my choice was. Within a few days, John Williams launched a fierce pursuit of the new colleague. How could a young girl withstand such an offensive? She agreed to John Williams's pursuit in no time. A colleague who once had great potential started slacking off, pouring all her energy into her husband and children, and because of frequent mistakes at work, she was eventually transferred from her core position. To prove himself, John Williams once, under the guise of handling business, smugly asked me if I regretted rejecting him back then. If I had agreed to his pursuit, the one idling away at the office now would be me. He was eager to see even a trace of regret on my face. I shrugged my shoulders. What a shame. I mean, that girl. She graduated from a prestigious university and has strong professional skills. If she had just focused on working hard for a few more years, she could have achieved financial independence. I let out a long sigh. Now, she has to ask for your permission and watch your expression just to buy a bag, right? As if I had hit a nerve, John Williams's face instantly turned very unpleasant. Women should be gentle and tender to be liked by men. A woman like you, who always contradicts men, will never get married in her lifetime, especially when you're older, with fading looks and such a bad temper. TSK TSK. How harsh. Too bad I'm not buying it. No need to worry about that. By the way, last month the bond fund market wasn't doing too well. I heard the newly switched investment lost 5 million. I wonder how much of Uncle Wang's family fortune is left for you to practice with. You better keep your eyes wide open before buying any products. There aren't many responsible financial advisors around these days. Did he think that if he withdrew his funds, I would be filled with regret, crying and begging him to come back? What a joke! Whether in my past life or this one, I have always known very clearly. The reason I work so hard is so that one day, I can confidently say no to men like him. People work to live, but living should not be drained of all vitality by work. At the age of 32, I finally saved enough to meet the goal I set for myself when I was reborn. I purchased a property in a city in the South region. Although it is located in the suburbs, it has convenient transportation, well-developed infrastructure, and even comes with a small courtyard where I can plant flowers and vegetables in my spare time. I invested 60% of the remaining money and kept 40% for myself to fulfill a regret from my past life. To have a baby of my own, to love her, support her, and let her experience all the beauty this world has to offer. After settling everything, I resigned from my job at the investment bank and prepared to fly abroad in search of a high-quality sperm bank. Unexpectedly, in the waiting lounge, I was stopped by an uninvited guest. I stared for a long time before I dared to confirm that the emaciated person before me was actually Sherry. Her eyes were sunken, filled with hatred. During the argument, I accidentally knocked off her faded baseball cap, revealing her purplish lips. "Rose, it's all because of you. You knew all along that Leo was having an affair and had a child outside of marriage, didn't you?" Cough, cough. All that talk about not wanting me to suffer and choosing to be childless, it was all lies. He poisoned me, ruined my health. Cough, cough. Just so he could live happily with that vixen. By the time she finished speaking, she had collapsed to the ground, completely drained of energy. I looked down at Sherry, now as weak as an ant, and my voice turned icy cold. I warned you from the start, some people and some things are not as glamorous as they appear on the surface. The meaning of a second chance is to avoid repeating past mistakes, not to romanticize the path not taken, whether in this life or the last. As human beings, especially as women, we should always rely on ourselves. Sherry, having lived over 100 years across 2 lifetimes, still failed to grasp this simple, fundamental truth. She always believed that my success as a strong woman in my previous life was merely riding on Leo's coattails. Little did they know, men are always just the icing on the cake, no matter the circumstances. I thought that if she faced the same difficulties I once did in this lifetime, she would understand. Shame and betrayal are the inexhaustible driving forces that spur a person to keep moving forward. Now it seems the difference between her and me lies in my mindset that everything that happens is for my benefit, while she, aside from complaining about the unfairness of fate, only directs her burning jealousy toward those around her. A person like her is destined to live a ruined life. Not wanting to waste any more words on her, I turned to leave. She clung desperately to my pant leg, wailing as if her life depended on it. Enough with your self-righteous talk about relying on yourself. It's all your fault. How could an ordinary bank clerk like you have ended up like this? You tricked me into leaving, just so you could climb onto John Williams's high branch, didn't you? You wretched woman. Cough. I regret it now. Give John Williams back to me, he's my husband. I don't want to be a strong woman anymore. And I don't want to be child-free either. I want my son, my daughter. Cough cough. I bent down and stared into her clouded eyes. Sherry, listen carefully. I never married, and I'm not with John Williams. Everything I have today, I earned with my own 2 hands. Sherry's pupils suddenly dilated, her fingers releasing their grip on my pant leg. She murmured under her breath, "How could it be? How could it be?" Her rough hands covered her ears as she shook her head frantically. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. John Williams is mine. He's mine. You're all liars. Liars. Ah. Ha 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 ha. At the airport, she cried and screamed, rushing around recklessly. Whenever she saw a woman wearing a trench coat with curly hair like me, she would pounce on her, demanding that she give John Williams back to her. In the end, 2 security guards from the waiting room forcibly dragged her out. Before boarding the plane, I glanced back at the broken and deranged Sherry and whispered to myself, keep moving forward. Don't look back. High in the sky, white clouds gather and disperse. As long as I remain forever positive and forever resilient, I will always encounter different splendid scenery at different times and places.